Hello, welcome to another episode of the Daisy Dates podcast. I'm Daisy, and on the podcast I chat all things heartbreak, finding love, mindset, and anything and everything to do with dating. And today we're talking love languages, which I'm very excited about because we've touched on it on various episodes but never really delved into it. So today we're learning the science of it. I'm joined with love coach TJ Gibbs. Now, clients will reach out to TJ to uncover and resolve issues related to dating, making up or breaking up, through to amicably moving on and establishing the next chapter in their life and their love. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, darling. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to have you on. You're just full of wisdom. So I think we're all going to learn so much in this episode. Before we start, I always do a little bit of a this or that game with guests. Okay. Just whatever springs to mind first in terms of dating and romantic relationships.
Go for it.
So for you, love letter or surprise gift?
Love letter.
Oh, I love it. Love texts or phone calls?
Ooh, both, please. Phone calls, I think.
You're allowed to ask for both. Yeah. Romantic weekend getaway or romantic weekend in?
In.
Group date or a one-on-one?
One-on-one.
And what does, to you, being loved look like?
Being able to show off as myself and the other person not having a problem with it.
Excellent. And why did you become a love coach?
Because, so when I went through my heartbreak, my relationship breakdown, and I didn't want to be here anymore. And the help that I needed wasn't available. So I saw so many different therapists, etc. And I ended up having a mental health breakdown, not being diagnosed with any mental health issues. I was actually admitted to a hospital. I wanted out, full stop. And it wasn't just the breakdown of the relationship. It was other relationships with my father, etc. And loss and bereavement and everything that if you don't get dealt with, builds up. So when I eventually had my mental health, I'm going to call it a breakthrough. People call it a breakdown.
Yeah, no,
right?
I like that.
I was admitted to a mental health institute and I was told after 10 days analysis that I don't have any mental health issues. I'm just really sad. And that's what broken hearts are. There's soul sadness. Heartache is a killer. And if it's consistent and built up, it causes the same kind of trauma. Eventually, that one-off things like jumping from a building, burning building or things like that could cause, because it's sustained traumatic scars that build up into a point of no longer, for some people, no longer wanting to be here. So the reason I do the work is because this wasn't out there when I needed it. And when I came out of the hospital, they said, we can't support you. We have no interventions for sad people. And this was 15, 20 years ago.
Okay, but still not that long ago though, really.
No, yeah. But I mean, mental health was either you're diagnosed and then you get... So I went in search and then I realised that the mind had a really powerful effect on how I saw the world. So hypnosis was something that I bought into, and I found what I'm specialising in is cognitive hypnotherapy. I trained for a year at the Quest Institute, and that was because the angel that I was provided in my life, within 4 sessions of cognitive hypnotherapy, I had moved on from the depression I'd been suffering for a year, relocated, started a new life in another country.
Wow.
Was there for 5 years. So it was that quick, that instant. So believe in it. So when I came back and was looking for my passion and purpose, then I decided to train in it. And what's ironic is I've always done this job my whole life.
Like naturally, it's just in you. I think, you have to have that natural aura for it to work.
Yeah, all my girlfriends, if you want to know what your passion is, ask your friends what you talk about non-stop, because that's what you're passionate about. So I decided to invest in my passion and do the work that I couldn't find myself at the time I needed it.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And when you are working with people, obviously you're finding a lot about a person within this work, which can be quite self-reflective work as well. How do you find that affects you personally or your dating life as well?
I've done the work. I've done the program that I do, the 2 programs, the Mania and the Get Ready for Love. So because I've done it myself, I've grown immensely in work that I do is based on 3 pillars. The first is the therapeutic qualifications that I have: cognitive hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, plus so many toolkits. But the second one is life wisdom, lived a very rich, extremely unusual life. But the third pillar is spirituality as well. It's bringing in spiritual well-being and understanding, getting you to be the best version of you so that you can show up for the love that's waiting for you. So I kind of deliver it on 3 different levels. Somebody asked me once, how did you get to be so good at what you do? I said, first I lived it. Then I studied it. So there's the therapeutic side of it. And then I kind of spiritualized it in terms of why it matters to people. Why do people want love? Why is it so important? And why is it life or death for some people?
Wow. Do you meet people that it truly is life or death?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever, when a client comes in, whether they're in for coaching or therapy, it's a case of them not feeling that they're getting what they want from their journey in life, especially with love. Not feeling love for themselves, not feeling loved from their parents, their peers, or their romantic relationships. So especially for women, men can focus and become workaholics, which a lot more women are doing as well, actually. Throw their emotions into their work, whereas women, their ultimate success is their relationships with other people.
Yeah, I would say so. Why do you think men don't focus on that so much?
Men will escape into the work. Okay, look, men and women are different for a reason. Biologically, we're very much designed different. No matter how much we compete, and I was in competition with men for 30 years as an IT consultant, paid huge amounts of money, and one of the only women in the industry when I started at 21. So totally understand where it comes from the power requirements and the financial things for men. But for them, investment in relationships is becoming much more important than it used to be because they're now in competition with their partners and no one's getting their needs met. So whereas it used to be from previous generations, genders really understood their roles in the dynamics of a happy relationship, whereas now it's competitive and people are trying to find their feet and where do they stand?
How do we work that out? I know for me, I find that particularly hard. I'm very much like work. I know I bring a masculine energy and I'm trying to sit more in the feminine side.
Yeah.
And I've been on a few dates with someone and I'm trying to explain the masculine, feminine. He doesn't totally get it yet, but he's learning, he's open to learning it. He's like, right. Oh, so are you saying I'm not masculine? I'm like, no, you have a great feminine side, which is your caring and nurturing qualities. And I still want that.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm trying to sit more in my feminine energy to help the man be the masculine.
I'm going to challenge you.
That's
Daisy,
fine, go for it.
because look what you've just said, right? You're busy telling him what he needs to do with himself.
No, sorry, I didn't actually tell him what he needs to do. I was telling him what I like about him.
Right.
So I like the feminine qualities. Was what I was saying. I don't. Yeah.
And this is what I think women are doing at the moment. What we're not doing is spending the thing that we found out about ourselves for ourselves and then allowing others to find out so we can understand them better.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think a lot of clients will come to me and say, I just want to meet someone who gets me. And particularly men say that.
Okay.
And I'll say, so do you? And they're like, oh, you caught me out completely. So where I'm coming from is when our focus is on somebody else's journey rather than our own in terms of what we need, getting our own needs met. But it's very difficult for men at the moment because they're displaced. They don't understand what is it that makes me a man. Previously, it was putting food on the table, bringing money home. It's like, being present as much as you can. But now it's very much changed in that women are supposed to be superheroes and men are supposed to understand women who are still trying to work out their place in the world. So how do you get into it? You get into your feminine energy with any relationship, whether it's 2 women together, 2 men together, heterosexual relationships. It's a case of understanding what your needs are, enough to be able to feel them yourself, and then open up to understand theirs.
Yeah. So what I meant was that I guess I am trying to sit more in the feminine so that he is able to come in and, embrace his masculine.
But he
I
may
guess.
not be ready for that. So what you've got to do is you've got to do you.
Yeah.
And then the partners who come along, you've got to say, okay, are they at the place where I need them to be?
Okay.
If not, they don't need to change. They need to go do what they've got to do. And you've got to be very clear. Women will focus more on the details of their wedding dress than they do the groom. They'll know the colour, they'll know the style, they'll know whether they want a veil or not. They want to know, honestly, but when I will ask them questions about their groom that they just don't know. So it's just like focus on doing you, understand who you are and why you do what you do and who you're attracting. Then you'll know, and I always say, men and women, be very careful who you date because you can't help who you fall in love with.
Ooh.
So you've got to do the work at the top end, not after you've fallen from them, found out they're emotionally unavailable, and then chase them round the world, round and round in circles, which I do know some women that's worked for, right? But that stalker style is very kind of, it's going to go one way or the other. You're going to get the man or you're going to get a jail sentence.
Yeah. Gosh, okay. Lots to unpack there. When you're saying working on yourself first, do you first, you have these 12 key components in love, happiness and life that you kind of put forward for people to fill out before you get to work with them ultimately to see where they're at. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? And I have actually done this. So TJ is aware of my score and we'll touch on it a little bit later.
Yeah, so it's 12 areas of life and love. Now, people will often focus on what's missing in their journey, can become fanatical about it, and then forget the other 11 areas. So whether that's finance, whether it's at the gym and physical, buffing up, liking to look or wanting abs, whether it's focused on their children and nurturing, whether it's focused on just making money. When you overly focus as a seeker on one area of the 12 areas, or even 6 areas of the 12 areas, you're going to be lacking in the areas that you're avoiding. So what the Wheels of Life and Love are aimed to do is to give me a very good baseline of where you're starting when you come in to work with me. It tells me whether we're working on from therapy or whether we're going into life or love coaching. It gives me a very clear understanding of what your jump off point is. And you might get clients with really high scores in some areas and really low in others. But those clients who come into me, it's not just relationships that I do anymore. It's people's relationships with themselves. So those clients that come into me that score really low, like in the 2s and 3s overalls, they've fallen out of love with themselves. They've disconnected from themselves. So there's therapy work to be done to reconnect them before they can connect to anyone else.
Is that the point you normally find people come to you?
All over.
Okay.
So it's interesting is that when I used to just do the love coaching work, people would come in post-relationships, post-divorce, or just, I'm always picking the wrong person kind of thing, or I can't find love. But what's happened more and more is as those clients needed the holistic work of understanding themselves better to show up in their relationships. So my practice now is about 80% word of mouth. So I do a lot of, I do a 5-step program called the Mycemia Experience, which includes hypnosis, where what I do is I reconnect you to yourself. And once you then, so you do the Wheels of Life and Love at session 1, session 5, we retake it. And you can see the difference in your happiness ratings in life and love. And at that point, that's when you'll probably go into coaching. Who are you looking for in your relationship? And depending on, I don't know if you're aware of this, but depending on where you are on your journey of life, but 21 to 28 is such a significant period of self-actualization that also, which we'll talk about a bit later, depending on where you are on the love cycle, will also really define how ready you are for love. So that's why my book is called Get Ready for Love, or the program's called Get Ready for Love. But that's when you're ready for coaching. If we need some underpinning therapy work, that will be defined by how low your score is. We'll first do the therapeutic work and then go on to the coaching.
Okay. Have you ever had someone come to you and get like a really high score, like a 9 or a 10? And
They would. Yes, the answer is, and she was lying.
Yeah, okay,
right?
yeah.
Because her scores didn't add up. She had some really low scores in some area. If you're talking about 9 or 10 overall, never, because that's somebody who's completely happy with life, joy. They would never go looking for help for anything. Their life is where they're at. I have had some people who've scored it after the work, which is really interesting because there is a post-therapy and coaching high. With the work that I do, once you reconnect yourself, you're buzzing. But actually what we're aiming for is a 7. 7 is the number of peace, 8 is the number of happiness, 9 is joy, and 10 is fulfillment. And to be quite honest, if you're completely fulfilled in life, there would be an argument spiritually of, okay, have you done your journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because what else is there left to learn or to achieve? Or maintaining fulfillment is really difficult.
Yeah. I scored a 6.7, so we'll get onto that a little bit later. So it's...
You scored a 6.9 overall. 6.7 was actually for your love area, and for life it was 7. So for life, you're 7, you're at peace. 6.7, you're in inquiry. Inquiry is a brilliant place to be because you're ready for change.
Okay, yes,
right?
and that's true. That is true, which people that have listened to the podcast will probably know that, because I'm trying to be self-reflective and be like, okay, well, why am I going for people that I'm going for, and what can I do to, I'm aware that if you're going on a lot of dates and you're not finding the people that are right for you, that's not necessarily them problem. So I'm fully aware of that, and it's important that you know that, isn't it? On the journey, like the self-reflective.
I think one of the most, first of all, what I want to say to anyone listening is I say to every one of my clients that walks through my door, you are the only expert on you. So whatever I'm going to say today is all subjected to your own truth. You know everything you need to know. My job is to help guide you towards what you've forgotten. Okay. So the question really would be is once you're at peace with yourself, how much of the risk are you prepared to take on love? Because it's a risky journey. It's just like you can be at peace with your job, but what if you suddenly get made redundant, right? Are you ready to go on the journey towards that which you don't know? So it's the reason why we do the therapy first before the coaching is so that you can turn up as the best version of you to take the risks, because love is a huge risk. And as I said, for some, life or death risk. It's not to be taken lightly. And some people choose not to take it anymore. And that's their right as well. I don't want any more. They'll get a dog. They'll kind of live on their own. They'll choose not to opt in love because it's a risky business.
Would you say that's more generational? Like that's happening a lot more now than it used to?
I don't think it's generational. The two questions there, it's not generational, but it is happening more now than it used to. Okay. Because people are now kind of focusing so much on their own needs, and they're not, since COVID, the need for communities. I know we talked about how you're really passionate about building communities and networks for people and friendships and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm massive on expanding friendships. I'm constantly making new friends in my life.
Well, we've gone backwards so much since COVID. So people have normalised just being on their own. And it's a bigger risk now to bring someone into that known. So I'm going to say something that really would help people, but it might throw you as well. Okay. Human beings prefer certain unhappiness over uncertain happiness.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Because certain unhappiness, your brain has told you will survive because you're living it. So you can thrive in it. So if you can stay in a relationship for years that you're not happy in, you're certain that you're unhappy, but you're not dead. Whereas the brain can't come to concepts with the uncertainty of happiness. So people will move on only when they not got a lot of choice, with many people, full stop, because the uncertainty of happiness is scarier than the unhappiness. The uncertainty of happiness is scarier than the certainty of unhappiness.
Oh, gosh. We're going to learn so much in this episode.
So that's why fear is the biggest thing that will hold people back. So you could very much find in your scores, for instance, that you're so happy being alone that literally the universe had to flick you off the end of the cliff to get you into that space of uncertainty where you will find happiness, which is 8, 9, and 10.
Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting point, because I would say I'm quite content, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like living alone, I love it. I'll get home tonight and I'll make a lovely meal and I might have a glass of wine and I just enjoy it. I'll enjoy watching something on my own.
And it's because what you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Inviting someone in like every day living with me does scare me to death.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is where you should be looking at situationships. Situationships that you don't, that there's somebody else that feels that same way, where you just want to enjoy the space with each other when you've got it. And then allow that to breathe. Now, we spoke just very briefly about this. Depending on your love style and where you're at on the love cycle. So if you're at a stage of storge where, you just prefer friendship over romance, then that can grow from there. Some people are pragma, which is pragmatic, where they want to get married, they want to have children, they've met somebody who wants the same as them. The chemistry's, there's no bells and whistles, but they both are what they want at that point. So when you go into where you are at on your journey right now, it is the truth that you really want a relationship. Are you prepared to take the risk on your piece?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, you are. Oh.
That's the question you need to ask yourself and have answered.
Yeah. I really hope you enjoyed that clip, and of course you can go back and enjoy the full episode. You can head to Amazon, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you go to get your podcasts, or of course you can watch on YouTube. I'll see you next time.